Let's all take several minutes to deeply settle and slow down. Take account of how you were doing. Are you able to simply be here? Notice this quality of awareness that you have. If you were to ask yourself, am I aware right now? Find that quality of awareness. Perhaps you notice a storm of thoughts will come up, maybe about your day or some other fantasy about tomorrow, and they momentarily block your view of the world in front of you, like the clouds going in front of the sun. Simply continue paying attention. Allowing that sense of awareness to settle into the present moment. Even if it's not yet in your body, at least be somewhat here. There's a full congress of ravens just over here. Ravens and crows mixing together, making noise, having fun. And again, notice the clarity of your mind, like the sun coming out from behind the clouds. Thoughts come and go. The awareness stays consistent, settled, present. You just want it to learn to settle here. Notice the things that are here. It might be physical sensations, perhaps the feeling of your breath or the feet on the ground. Sounds you're hearing. For me, it's fun bird calls, lots of clicking and croaking. It can also be helpful to notice what's not here. That's another funny way of exposing the illusions and the dreams for what they are. If you find yourself having a conversation with somebody from 5 years ago or 5 years in the future, maybe you can teach yourself to pause and wake up and say, hey, maybe that is not actually happening. And then notice something that is happening as a way to anchor you into the moment. And here you are. The breath is still happening. Your feet are still feeling the ground. With every exhalation, you get softer. More here. Takes energy to not be here. Better to be a lazy Taoist. Just be here. Letting everything go. Don't try to force your breath. It takes too much energy to try to breathe. Just let the breath go. Even blinking takes too much energy. Just let the blinking happen on its own. Couple more minutes. Every time your mind wanders away, don't fight with it, don't pull it back. Just look at the distraction, the agitation of the mind, and simply soften around it. Just let it go. It dissolves on its own. You were just grasping at a dream. You just have to look at it to notice that it's not there, and your mind will naturally come back. Take more interest in something that's actually happening. Let me close some doors here. Hey, Dell. Thanks for joining. Dell, you are single-handedly lifting my confidence about my clothing choices. I'm going to take off my headphones, so just as a reminder, keep your awareness settled inside your body. Use your fingers to connect with that space just beneath the surface of the skin. You're not trying to push hard. Softening and settling your mind, the qualities of your body, staying present. And for those of you who are joining us for the first time and are not quite sure what's going on, please do check down below for a link to an introductory lesson that will help you understand what we're doing for when you join us at these live sessions so you don't feel lost. There's also a link to a list of the movements and practices that we do for people who might want that. So I will take my headphones off. Please stay here. Staying soft and centered. Just resting here in the moment. Continuing to release your fingers, your hands, your wrists, the whole forearm up to the elbow. Now that you are over 2 months into this practice, there's a few things I'm hoping that you're cultivating. This deep softness with the hands, a enriched capacity to experience your own body, to put your awareness inside your body. I know for a lot of people that's very difficult. Hopefully you've found yourself more grounded, settled. Your body is softening in all the ways that we're working for. If you're moving in that direction, if those kinds of changes are happening, then you're getting huge benefit from this practice. Because it's been 2 months, which is, in a way, a long time. There's a lot of practice happening. And in another way, it's fantastically short for those kinds of changes to be happening. And if you were just to continue down this road, even just doing this one practice for the next year, and your progress was the same, it would be hugely impactful for your health, for your mind, for how you are in your body. So I'm really happy that people have been getting so much benefit from such a practice. So simple, loving touch. That's another thing. Hopefully you've gotten a little bit better at expressing kindness, loving intent toward yourself. That's another transformation that cannot be underestimated. Hopefully you're finding your emotions slowing down rather than speeding up. Becoming more calm, more centered, more settled. Yesterday, I was having a long chat with Master ZhiCheng, and he was talking about how within traditional Chinese and Daoist culture, they look at this desire that a lot of people have to crave more, to feel more, to have stronger appetites, to get more. Like in our culture, it's get more money, get more status, more power, get all of the things, make sure everybody on social media knows about it. It's a drive that's like a fire that consumes us from the inside. And in this traditional culture, they refer to it as moving in the direction of not being human, turning into the more beast qualities. They actually use terms like, well, in English we might say like ghosts and demons, but without the religious connotation. Just in the sense that you can cultivate to be a genuine person, even a sage, or you can cultivate to become ghost or demon. And you want this movement within your system to go in the direction of stillness, openness, freedom, rather than being bound to more cravings, more appetite, more things that I need in order to feel okay. That's not freedom. Freedom is this deep, resting contentment within yourself, just sitting here, listening to the raven behind me. You don't need anything. Your body, soft, present, and strong and healthy, because you don't feel the need to do things to toxify it in order to feel something. Move in the direction of being a human, according to these principles. Softer, more present, deeper levels of awareness, deep levels of calm and grounding, a sense of peace arising just from the present moment, not from anything in particular. Yesterday we talked about the Wu Lao, the 5 exhaustions, the 5 things that wear us out. And they're mostly postures, ways that we move and interact in our lives that tend to slowly damage our physical frame. Sitting, standing, lying down, walking, and surfing the internet. And how they are damaging. And usually in Chinese medicine, that chart is right alongside the chart of the 7 injuries. 5 exhaustions and 7 injuries. These are other ways that we like to damage ourselves that mostly relate to the internal organs. Remember to soften all the way back, keeping your shoulders released. You're not trying to dig in here. You're simply releasing that layer just beneath the skin, on top of the musculature. Be easy, gentle with your hands. The first 5 of the 7 injuries that are listed, which is just one famous doctor's take on some of the most common things that people use to hurt themselves. And starting with the lungs, one of the main things that, at least in this doctor's time, that people used to injure their lungs was breathing cold air and drinking cold liquids. And that's definitely something that not only have I experienced it myself in my own body, but it's something common in the clinic, especially drinking iced liquids, which is a very common thing, at least in the States. I know elsewhere around the world it's not so common. When I was younger, that was actually something that I came to be aware of that would kick off a really big asthma attack for me. It was cold weather and cold drinks. So one useful thing to do is if you have the tendency of drinking iced drinks, stop, or at least get them a little less cold, perhaps. And it's also damaging for digestion, according to Chinese medicine, at least. Occasionally is okay, but if it's habitual, it tends to damage the lungs and the spleen and stomach. And if you live in a very cold environment, wrap a scarf around your mouth so that the air is a little bit warmer as it enters your lungs. It's a little less damaging for the lungs. I've never really lived in a very cold environment, so I'm not the best person to give advice about that. Your whole body is quiet. Your awareness is settled in your body. settling deeply. If your mind wanders away, then come back and take the time to settle. Hopefully also by this point, after a couple of months of practice, you've gotten better at feeling when your system is actually beginning to sink the qi and to settle. Even if it isn't able to sink all of the way, for you there must be a point that you recognize, okay, this is as soft and as settled as I'm going to become. And at least wait for that. Eventually there will be a full sinking in and settling inside, a consolidation, a nice warming time, and then after some undetermined period of time, there will be this arising again that pushes out, and you know you continue with the practice. But until then, in the very least, give your mind a moment to slow down, your breath, the opportunity to deepen. So like the 5 exhaustions, the 7 injuries, I think they came several hundred years later. This is all maybe, who knows, 700 or 800 years ago. Maybe less than that, maybe more like 500, I'm not sure for this one. And clearly there are a lot of things that can damage the lungs that aren't listed in this man's little recommendation, but these were the things that he would tell his patients. So the cold damaging the lungs, and in his opinion, the thing that tended to damage the heart the most was strong emotions, consistent emotions. So when people would have all different kinds of emotions that are anywhere in their body, even the emotions that tend to be focused in the liver or the spleen or other areas of the body, according to Chinese medicine, they all pass through this filter of our emotional self, which involves the heart. And so this poor heart, that's always working for us. It never gets a break. It's always going. Make sure you pause and thank your heart once in a while. And it's also dealing with our constant ups and downs. Lots of thinking, lots of worry and anxiety, frustration, these kinds of things. They're kind of emotional congestion. And so if you're somebody who's always on some kind of roller coaster ride, then it's damaging to a lot of aspects in your body. And one of them, at least according to this particular ancient doctor, is the heart. At least in my own life, I've definitely found that to be true, since I've suffered from a lot of heart difficulty and a lot of emotional issues over the years. So as we practice, not only are you drinking something warm, but if you're thirsty, it's not part of the practice. I just like tea. But alongside that, you are letting your heart have a break by being calm, centered. You're not trying to push emotions. You're not trying to do anything in particular. You're just here, being open, gentle, this light, friendly, kind-hearted quality. Not because you're trying to be kind. That's just more tension. Instead, you're just releasing that natural quality of friendliness and kindness that we all know we have inside us when we're not freaking out about something. We're just nice people. And we let that kindness be directed toward ourselves as well. And this is good for the heart. And speaking of strong emotions, the liver in Chinese medicine, and remember, in Chinese medicine, we're not talking about these specific organs necessarily, but we're also talking about whole systems. So in Chinese medicine, we don't really try to drill down to specifics. Instead, we see how things are related to each other. That mechanism of relationship we just call qi. That's what qi is. And so when I talk about the liver qi, for instance, we're talking about more than just this bread loaf sized thing over here. And the liver is injured by great anger. And also qi rushing upward. Both of these are very harmful for the liver qi. Great anger comes with compression and qi rushing upward, but people also can cause qi to rush upward from all sorts of things, especially incorrect practices these days. So whenever there's practices that you'll hear about or learn, and they are numerous, that enjoy forcing energy upward for that rush, it is considered to be very harmful for the liver system. So we soothe the liver, we calm our system down, we release great anger, we let the qi sink, constantly sinking. Of course, again, there's plenty of ways that we like to damage our liver for fun and profit. And these were the two most fearsome, according to this Chinese doctor. I'm sure we've all experienced how anger can damage our bodies and our lives in general. Good thing to learn how to just let it go. a pretty good life. Taking the time out to soften and be awake. As long as I'm working on my back here. One of the 7 injuries is, of course, to the kidneys. And this doctor's favorite way of helping people protect their kidneys was to keep them from using their bodies too hard. Overexertion of their body, or overdevelopment of the musculature, which in our world is usually people who have jobs where they're doing heavy lifting over the time and it slowly damages their lower back, weakens their kidney chi. But also, usually gym rats, people that are constantly building up their body. And from the perspective of Chinese medicine, that has a cost. You are expending your essence to build your body, which is certainly a fine choice. But for people who are dealing with weak kidneys, then they would want to avoid trying to expend their essence to build up their body in a way that isn't necessarily immediately helpful for their health. So even this ancient doctor recommended staying away from bodybuilding until you're healthy. This is best to do on your skin, by the way. I'm going to spend some extra time on the knees today because we had some requests about that. And while I do, I can mention this doctor's recommendation about the spleen and stomach. Again, spleen is one of the 5 major Chinese yin organs, organs of storage. And the way that we tend to injure it, that he would warn his patients about, was one, overeating or eating damaging foods, which is definitely a thing that we know about in our world these days. Although I know, certainly myself, a number of people that damage their spleen by not eating enough. But this kind of forced starvation thing doesn't happen that often. And the other is this kind of constant circling of the mind, overthinking. We have lots of fun words about it. Worrying, which is referencing how a dog is chewing on a bone over and over and over again, worrying away at the bone. We do that with certain ideas, these obsessive loops. Or the term rumination, which comes from how cows and other ruminants will eat something, and then a little while later they bring it up to chew on it again, and then they put it away. And then a little while later they bring it up and chew on it again, and they put it away. And we do the exact same thing with our thoughts. I'm sure all of us have our favorite old thing that we had happen that we like to ruminate on. Pull it up, chew on it for a while, put it away. That's also damaging, according to this doctor, to the spleen and stomach. Speaking of the spleen and stomach 36 here is just a fantastic point for healing the spleen and stomach. Stimulating like this once a day is just wonderfully helpful. Spleen 9 here on the inside is also helpful for healing common damage that happens from people who tend to overeat. Remember gallbladder 34 on the outside as well. Taking your time. Hopefully you guys can see me okay with the sun coming in, the bright and the dark. I'm never sure how the camera is going to handle the contrast. To me, I know it just looks like a normal room with some sunlight coming in, but often on the camera it looks like some strange Alfred Hitchcock adjustment. The birds, they're coming. That's why those ravens and crows are gathering over there. It all comes together. So we went through the 5 yin organs: the lungs, the heart, the liver, the spleen, the kidneys. And this doctor adds 2 more for his patients and students. One is for the body in general. And it's similar to the 5 exhaustions, how he's just talking about stuff that's happening to the body. And this is that the body is injured by adverse external environmental factors. So the cold gets into the body and starts to damage the joints, the flesh. It works its way into the channels and obstructs them. Great heat does the same. The wind, being in the damp all the time, injures the body. And so these external environmental conditions, we have to use, either we use up our body's resources just trying to help us survive, like eating cold food. In order to digest it, we have to heat it up to body temperature in Fahrenheit, about 100 degrees. And that takes a lot of energy. So it saves energy to cook the food first, to heat it up. That's the thing about the cold drinks. If you drink cold liquids before you digest it, your body has to heat it up. That expends energy. In this case, qi, stomach and spleen qi, that you may not want to be spending on that kind of frivolous dietary choice. The same with the wind. If you're out in the wind and you're not protecting your neck and your head and your surface of your body, in Chinese medicine, they say that the wind is the spearhead of the 1,000 diseases, which is a very dramatic name. Traditional Chinese poets, over the course of thousands of years, collected a lot of fun, dramatic names. But we do want to protect ourselves from strong wind as best we can, because it tends to lodge in the body and cause problems. The same thing with being outside in great heat. For those of us that spent a lot of time living in the desert, we know what that's like. And all of these environmental conditions that tend to slowly damage the body. I have so many stories about people who try to weather the cold and make their bodies cold resistant, all of the problems that they start to develop. Usually that I just help them treat by getting an electric blanket or start taking hot baths or slowly trying to get the cold that is lodged in their body back out again. These are young people, but we like to fight the world, and it expends a lot of resources to do that. So one way to save qi is to just wear warm clothing, protect ourselves from the environment, get the right gear, and then you'll be doing fine. The seventh is almost like an extension of the sixth, about the body and the environment. I get the feeling like just as he went along, he created his five, and then he kept seeing his students or his clients not being careful outside or something, so he made the sixth. And then he decided to add a seventh because maybe his apprentices or something like that were sitting on the ground too often, because his seventh is that sitting on the cold, damp ground, it injures another part of your kidneys and your body. And in this case, he refers it as the zhi, the will, this very important quality in our mind body. Will isn't really the best translation for it, but is that it refers to if you see people who have a grand exuberance for life, they don't have to be excited about life, but they have the will to keep going. Life is here and they're happy to be alive. I mean, you can see in certain people, there's a quality that can slowly wear down, where they slowly lose that drive to be alive. They lose this will to move forward in life in a healthy way. And it's a really interesting thing to watch. It's a particular quality that can be strengthened or weakened. And according to this doctor, and Chinese medicine in general, that aspect is part of kidney qi. It's one of the things that kidney qi nourishes in our mind body. And so for him, it was so important that maybe he saw a number of people who were not doing well mentally, emotionally. And so he decided that it was important enough to include as his seventh statement that sitting on cold ground damages this cold, damp ground, damages this aspect of our will. And those are the 7 injuries. And of course, they're not supposed to be a list that covers all of the things that damages all of the possibilities. But it's still a useful one to know, to have in the back of your head as you learn about the ways to keep yourself healthy. I was actually shocked when I found out about the cold drinks, the cold food damaging the lungs. But after I learned about it, I started noticing it everywhere, especially in myself. So I feel very grateful to hear about it. For other people, very commonly, maybe they have a habit of sitting on a stone bench in the park when it's very cold. This is a thing I've seen a lot. And they come to me with terrible sciatica or back pain or perineal pain or something like this. And it's hard to figure out what's going on. Where did all of this cold come from? And then I find out that their favorite thing to do is perhaps go to the park and sit on this bench, or maybe they just sit in their backyard on the damp ground and watch the birds or something, which sounds like a very wholesome, lovely activity, but the cold and the damp is finding its way into the body. And so one of the things we can do is just put something on the ground to keep it warm and dry. And that can be really helpful. And it was such a problem that this famous doctor actually felt the need to really codify it and tell everybody, please don't do this. And I can second that because I've seen it often enough that it's definitely worth being careful about. And my recommendation for you specifically, yes, you, is to notice that as I was going through those, if one of them in particular really stood out to you as, oh, gosh, I really do that, then focus in on that. Not now. Right now, focus in on the practice. But after practice, pay attention to what you can do to change that particular injury, how you can protect yourself and heal. Make sure the movement comes all the way up to the hips. Easier if you're sitting on the ground, of course. But aha, I don't like sitting on the cold ground. And I have not yet pulled over some mats to sit on. Though I should probably do that. Remember, you can use your hands to help if this is tiring for you. You want to keep your legs as soft as possible. I'm just putting my hands here to make it obvious that you're not just turning your ankles, but the whole leg is rotating. And then I'll mimic what I'm doing with my feet and my hands. You don't have to use your hands, but it seems like it really does help some people. You can also go across, touching the big toe and the little toe on opposite sides. If your foot starts to cramp or get exhausted, just stop, take some time, shake your feet out or something, and then continue. Just like every other practice, don't push until it becomes stagnant. Practice until it's warm and alive, and if it starts to move out of that position, just wait and then continue with the practice. You can also grasp with your feet, extending your toes in all directions as best you can, wrapping around, rounding the bottom of your feet. You can also go this way. If I fold my toe in and push it out, it makes that wave-like motion. So you lead with your toes down and under, that way. If you have the ability to move this way, it's just another way to wake your feet up. And again, I highly recommend doing these particular practices here, foot movements, before you get out of bed in the morning. That's a big game changer. I try to do it every day. So I'm warming up my feet, one on the other. The spleen and liver channels, kidney channel. Turning your navel from side to side. I'm going to take off my headphones, and remember, Click the teeth, lengthen the tongue without strain. If your teeth are feeling delicate today, or maybe you have some dental work you have to be careful around, you can simply touch your teeth lightly and press them together just to generate movement. And see if you can touch all of your teeth. And if you can't, that's a good reason to visit orthodontist if possible. And then running your tongue around your teeth. Basically, we want to do as many as we can without getting tired, without getting exhausted or adding tension. For some people, that may be 3 times. For others, it may be 30. On Master ZhiCheng's list, he has 100. I cannot do 100 without getting exhausted, so I don't. But you can do as many as you'd like, but always stop before you start to cause problems. And then gather that saliva that hopefully is collecting in your mouth. Swallow it down, follow that motion down as though you can feel it rest behind your navel. This is a kind of preparatory practice for later, more important Taoist meditation methods for people who choose to pursue that. If you would like to lie flat on the ground, of course, feel free to do so. Softening your body in any way that you'd like. But you do want your awareness to rest throughout your body. softening and letting go. Noticing the change that your practice brought about. Getting settled and free. Your mind more and more anchored in your body, settled in the moment. Noticing how much more settled your nervous system is, how much easier it is to breathe. At some point, when you feel ready, if you're lying down, find yourself back in a seated position. Just something comfortable. Unless you prefer just to stay lying down for a while, that's okay too. This can be a really nice practice to do just before a long sitting meditation session if you ever feel like trying it, because at the end of it you are soft and much more open, much more ready to settle deeply into a state of clarity, depending on what kind of meditation you're doing. Slowly let your awareness move from being anchored in the center of your body in your middle dantian and slowly expanding through your whole body, from your fingertips to your toes, and then out into the space around you, but staying anchored in your body in the present moment. Soft. Soft in relationship to the world around you. Thank you very much. Nice to have everybody join us. It's always fun to practice and nice to be able to do it with such nice people. Should you have any questions? Oh, it looks like Del already left. I'll have to answer his questions later. If there's any other questions, feel free to ask. Getting pretty windy out there. All of the snow from the past few days is gone. Even not much snow on the mountain. Mel has a question. Question from Mel. Lay it on me. Dell mentions that he wishes that he could clip the videos and so that he could mark and save his favorite parts. And I was saying that earlier, that if any of you watch these videos and you find a good 1 or 2 minute section, if you send them to me, I'll make them into a short and put them up. Mel says, I'm noticing a tendency today to hold the body when there's an opening, the temptation to freeze when something feels good. It's very interesting. I think that one way of looking at it is that we like to maintain homeostasis in everything that we do. We like to keep things the way they are. We don't like change as organisms for good reason. We've got to maintain things being safe, and it's a much safer heuristic to just keep things as they are, because we're alive now. Let's just keep it that way. That's why you see people in all kinds of situations, even situations that might seem unhealthy to us from the outside. People don't want to change them because they know that they're safe where they're at, and changing brings possibility for greater danger. It seems unsafe, even if we're living in a space that is clearly unsafe already. And so as our bodies open, any kind of change causes us to freeze up. It feels like a lot. And so I think that that's a really common thing, that as we have these openings, the rest of the system, the body mind goes, oh, something's changing. And we sort of close ranks and we look around carefully to see what's going on. And that's why things that are opening in fits and starts have that quality of, if it goes a little too far, the body clamps down on it. Like if I'm stretching, I'm making a big movement, my body does not know how to make that movement, and suddenly it clamps down around it. Not because my body isn't flexible enough to do that movement, but because my body's not sure, is this movement safe? And so suddenly I can't move anymore and it freezes. We do that with everything, with dietary shifts, with everything. And somebody decides they want to lose weight, and so they stop eating entirely, or they eat a lot less, and so their body clamps down on their metabolism. So now they have half as much energy because they're like, oh, are we in a famine? Like, what's going on? And so the body's constantly stopping the movement that's there in order to reassess. And it's one of the reasons why we want to make small and gradual changes that happen every day. Larger changes tend to cause damage, and in part because it causes this whiplash effect, that if we push on the body, it pushes back. And big openings cause big reactions. And that can be harder to overcome. If the body clamps down, now it's more difficult to open again. And so, not that we can always control it, but if you're having little openings every day, that tends to be easier to maintain than huge openings. Almost all the time, those close again later because our system shuts down around it because it's not sure if it's safe or not. Yeah, I hope that helps. And we just continue, and things move that way. They just kind of constantly open and close, and very slowly over time, our systems change, whether it's with diet or with psychological shifts or even changes in relationships and our friendship circles. Everything moves like that. And just recognizing that our fear response is a natural human thing. We don't judge ourselves for it. It's just how we're built. It's how we've evolved. And we just smile at it and go, okay, it's all right. It's all right. You let go. And then slowly the body softens, the nervous system calms down. But these practices that we do are hugely transformative when we do them right. And so these changes can happen faster than we expect, certainly faster than our evolutionary nervous system expects. And so we are constantly having to learn to reopen not just the old stuff, but our reaction to getting rid of the old stuff. So I think it's a funny human trait, and it makes us very lovable, and it makes it understandable why things can be difficult. We can't just suddenly shift because historically it's not safe to do that. And so we just take care and we go through them slowly. Thank you, everybody. You are all very loved. Enjoy your practice. I will see you tomorrow.